The war between humans and vampires had raged for many seasons. The humans lived under the light of the sun, working their lands and building their towns, while the vampires ruled the night skies, swift and powerful. For many years, the balance had been in favor of the vampires. They were older, stronger, and their leaders had mastered the art of fear. Humans were forced to pay tribute in food, resources, and even lives. Yet the spirit of humanity never broke. Among the many warriors who rose during this time, one man gained a name spoken with respect and fear. His name was Aaron. He was not born into greatness. He was the son of a farmer, raised in the dust of fields, but he had the heart of a fighter. When the vampires raided his village and took his family, Aaron swore he would never live as prey again. He trained his body, sharpened his mind, and studied every weakness his enemies had. Aaron joined the resistance when he was still young, and soon he became known for his bravery. He did not fear the dark wings of the vampire lords. He learned to fight with speed, with fire, and with weapons designed to pierce their armor like skin. Many battles were lost by humans, but wherever Aaron stood, the fight lasted longer and the spirits of men rose higher. His leadership made small groups of humans fight like armies. The turning point came when a vampire lord named Varric declared a campaign to crush the last human stronghold. Varric was old, cruel, and certain of his power. His followers believed no human could stand against him. When Varric's armies approached, many thought it was the end of human freedom. But Aaron had prepared. He gathered soldiers, hunters, and common folk who refused to bow. With clever traps, blazing fires, and the courage of his people, Aaron stood ready to meet the night. The battle was fierce. The sky was filled with wings, and the ground shook with the cries of men and beasts. Arrows tipped with silver burned through the air. Torches lit the battlefield like a second sun. The vampires attacked again and again, but Aaron led from the front. His sword struck true, his shield saved lives, and his voice carried strength into the hearts of every fighter near him. At last, Aaron faced Varric himself. The vampire lord was taller, stronger, and faster than any human. His claws gleamed like blades, and his fangs shone in the firelight. Many thought Aaron would fall, but the warrior did not step back. He fought with the rage of loss and the will to protect. Every strike was met with steel, every rush answered with fire. At the end of the long duel, Aaron drove his blade into Varric's chest, piercing the heart. The vampire lord gave one last cry and fell, his body turning to ash before the eyes of both armies. The sight shook the battlefield. The vampires who had followed Varric screamed in shock, while the humans shouted with joy. The tide of the war shifted that night. With their leader gone, the vampire army broke apart. Some fled, some surrendered, and some were cut down by human blades. The victory was clear. Humanity had struck down a lord of the night. When the dust settled, the vampire rulers gathered in their council. They were not united, for each clan had its own pride and rivalries. Some wanted to continue the war, others wanted to retreat. In the end, fear and reason guided their choice. They saw that humans could no longer be treated as prey. If one warrior could slay a lord, then humans would only grow stronger with time. To avoid endless battles that could weaken them all, the Vampire Council agreed to offer peace. It was decided that a gift of honor must be given to the humans as a sign of truce. They could not offer gold, for humans did not value it in the same way. They could not offer lands, for humans already lived where they stood. Instead, they offered something far more symbolic, the hand of a princess. Her name was Lyra. She was the daughter of the high ruler of the vampire clans. Known for her beauty and grace, she was also known for her intelligence. She was young compared to the ancient lords, yet old in human eyes. Lyra had grown up in the halls of shadow, learning about duty and power. She had never been asked if she wished to serve as a bridge between two worlds. She was simply told that her life now belonged to peace. When word reached the human stronghold that the vampires would offer a princess, many were suspicious. Some feared a trap. Others whispered that it was a trick to spy on them. But Aaron, who had fought long and hard, saw it differently. He knew that peace was never simple, but he also understood the power of symbols. Accepting the princess was not just about honor, it was about showing that humans could stand as equals to those who had ruled over them. The day of the meeting arrived. Under the light of both moon and torches, the vampire envoys came, their wings folded, their steps careful. With them walked Lyra, dressed in dark silver robes that shimmered like water. Her eyes glowed faintly, a reminder of her nature, yet her face carried calm strength. She walked with dignity, though inside her heart was heavy. Aaron stood before her, wearing the armor scarred by many battles. His sword hung at his side, but his posture was steady. He did not bow like a servant, nor glare like an enemy. He looked at her as one warrior would look at another, searching for truth. The vampire envoys spoke, declaring that this gift would bind their truce. They said that Princess Lyra would now belong to the humans, to live among them as a sign of trust. Many human leaders exchanged uneasy looks. Some whispered that she should be locked away. But Aaron stepped forward. He said clearly that she was not a prize to be caged, nor a trophy of war. She was a person, and if peace was to be real, then respect must stand on both sides. His words carried weight, for he had earned the right to speak with victory and blood. The humans nodded, the vampires kept silent, and the agreement was sealed. That night, as the envoys left, Lyra stayed behind with Aaron and his people. She felt the eyes of many upon her, some cold, some curious. She did not yet know what her new life would hold, nor did she trust this warrior who had slain one of her kind. But she could not deny the way he had spoken. Unlike many others, he did not see her as a tool or a burden. Aaron, for his part, did not know the road ahead either. He only knew one truth: the war had changed everything. A vampire princess now walked among humans, and her presence would shape the future of both races. The fires of the battlefield had cooled, but the fire of destiny was only beginning to burn. The night after the truce, Princess Lyra sat alone in the human stronghold. The hall given to her was not a prison, but it did not feel like home either. The walls were built of stone, strong and plain. The light of the torches flickered against the rough surface, and the smell of wood smoke filled the air. Outside the hall, she could hear voices of guards, their boots shifting as they kept watch. She knew they were not there to protect her, but to make sure she did not leave. She thought about her father's face when he told her of the council's decision. His words had been calm, but his eyes carried weight. Peace requires sacrifice, he had said. She had bowed and answered as a princess must, though in her heart she wanted to ask why she should be the one given away. Yet she had not spoken the question. Duty was a chain she had worn since birth. Aaron entered the hall that evening. He removed his helmet, showing his tired face. The scars on his cheek and brow told stories of countless battles. He looked at her, but not with hunger or cruelty. His eyes were steady, filled with caution but also respect. "You are safe here," he said simply. Lyra lifted her chin. "Safe as a guest or safe as a prisoner?" Aaron paused before answering. "Safe as a symbol of peace." The choice of how you live among us will decide whether people see you as guest or prisoner. His words were strange to her ears. Among her people, choices were often illusions. Nobility spoke of freedom, but duty always weighed heavier. Yet here, in this hall, a human warrior spoke to her as if she could shape her own path. In the days that followed, Lyra walked among the humans. Guards followed her, and many eyes turned wherever she went. Some looked with curiosity, others with fear, and a few with open anger. Children hid behind their mothers, whispering about her glowing eyes. Farmers muttered that she should not be trusted. Soldiers kept their hands close to their blades. But she also saw kindness. An old woman offered her bread, though the woman's hands trembled. A young boy brought her a flower, then ran away before she could thank him. Aaron watched carefully. He knew his people did not trust easily, and he did not blame them. For generations, vampires had hunted humans, taking what they wanted. Now a princess of those same creatures walked freely among them. It was a test of patience for both sides. One evening, Aaron invited Lyra to join the training grounds. She stood at the edge as soldiers practiced with sword and shield. The clang of steel filled the air, along with shouts of command. The men and women trained hard, sweat running down their faces, determination in their eyes. "You fight without fear," Lyra said as she watched. "Even when the enemy is stronger, you do not stop." Aaron nodded. "Fear is always there. But we fight because we must. If we fall, our families fall with us. Humans learn to endure, even when the night was against us." Lyra studied him. His voice carried no pride, only truth. For her people, strength had always been given by bloodline, by ancient power. For humans, strength was built through struggle. It was different, yet in some way, greater. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, Lyra began to see things she had never imagined. She saw humans laugh freely after hard work, sharing food at long tables. She saw them care for one another, lifting the weak, honoring the fallen. Their lives were short compared to vampires, but their bonds seemed deeper for it. Still, not everyone welcomed her presence. One night, as she returned from the village, a group of men blocked her path. They carried torches, their faces hard with suspicion. "You do not belong here," one of them said. "You are one of them. How long before you betray us?" The guards at her side raised their weapons, but the crowd grew restless. The air was heavy with anger. Before the moment could turn violent, Aaron arrived. His voice cut through the night. "Stand down," he commanded. "She is under my protection." The men hesitated, but none dared challenge him directly. Slowly, they stepped back. The torches lowered, and the crowd dispersed. Still, Lyra felt the sting of their words. Later, she asked Aaron why he defended her. "Your people do not trust me. Some hate me. Why risk their anger for my sake?" Aaron looked at her calmly. "Because peace is fragile. If I let them treat you as an enemy, then you will become one. If I show them respect, they will learn to follow. It will take time. But time is something we must earn." His answer stayed with her. It was not spoken like a soldier's order, but like a truth he lived by. One afternoon, when the sun was high, Lyra stood at the walls of the stronghold. From there, she could see the wide lands stretching out, fields of green and rivers shining in the light. She had lived her life in shadowed halls and high towers. This view felt open, vast, and alive. She thought of her people, who rarely saw the world under the sun, and she wondered what they were missing. Aaron joined her at the wall. He stood quietly, watching the land as she did. "This is what we fight for," he said softly. "Not power. Not glory. Just the right to live free in the light." Lyra turned her eyes to him. "And you think a princess of the night can ever share that dream?" Aaron met her gaze. "I think anyone can choose what they want to fight for. Even a princess." For the first time since she had been given to the humans, Lyra felt her heart stir with something other than duty. She did not yet call it trust, and she did not yet call it hope. But it was a spark, faint yet real. In the nights that followed, she began to speak more openly with Aaron. She asked about his past, and he told her of his lost family, of the village taken by vampires. His voice carried no hatred, only sorrow and resolve. She asked why he never sought revenge against all vampires. He answered simply, "Because revenge cannot build a future. It only burns what is left." She listened, and in listening, she began to understand him. Still, shadows lingered. Not all vampires were pleased with the truce, and whispers reached Lyra's ears. Messengers loyal to her father brought warnings of unrest among the clans. Some believed she had been dishonored by being given to humans. Others plotted to break the fragile peace by force. Lyra knew that her presence in the human stronghold was both a shield and a target. But when fear touched her, she remembered Aaron's steady eyes and his words of choice. For the first time in her long life, she wondered what it would mean to choose not as a princess bound by duty, but as a person with her own will. The chains of honor were still around her, but they no longer felt unbreakable. The story of the warrior and the princess was only beginning, but already the course of their fates was changing. The peace between humans and vampires was like a fragile glass. It looked steady when held carefully, but one wrong move could shatter it into pieces. Weeks passed since Princess Lyra had been given to the humans, and though she lived among them with honor, tension still grew on both sides. For the humans, suspicion never truly left. Many still whispered that she was dangerous, that her beauty and calm words were only a mask to hide darker plans. For the vampires, her absence was a wound to their pride. Some clans said she had been traded like a coin, a sign of weakness for their kind. Others whispered that she was a traitor for walking freely among mortals. Lyra felt the weight of both worlds pressing against her. By day, she walked among the humans, learning their ways, speaking with their children, and helping the healers who cared for the wounded. By night, she wrote letters to her father, asking for unity and calm among the clans. Yet she knew words alone could not stop ambition or pride. The first sign of betrayal came quietly. One evening, Aaron stood at the gates of the stronghold when a rider arrived. The man carried wounds across his arms, his cloak torn by claws. His voice was weak but urgent as he told of an attack. A border village had been burned, its people scattered. The survivors spoke of vampires striking from the night, their banners marked with the crest of Varric, the Lord Aaron had slain. Aaron's brow darkened. Varric was gone, but his followers were not. The rider said they called themselves the Blood Oath, a faction sworn to avenge their fallen master. They rejected the peace of the council, claiming that no vampire should kneel to humans. Their raids grew bolder, striking farms and outposts, leaving fear behind them. When Lyra heard the news, her heart sank. She knew some clans would resist, but she had hoped it would be slower, less violent. Now the war threatened to rise again. That night, the Council of Humans gathered. Voices clashed in the hall, filled with fire and suspicion. "This is her doing," one man shouted, pointing at Lyra. She walks among us, yet her kind attacks our homes. How do we know she does not guide them with secret messages? Others joined in. How can we trust her? What if she is a spy? Aaron stood firm at her side. His voice cut through the noise. If she were a spy, she would not stand here while her own kind risk open war. She has lived with us, helped our people, and asked for nothing in return. Judge her by her actions, not by your fear. Some fell silent at his words, but doubt remained. Trust was not something won in days. It was a slow fire, and fear was a strong wind that could snuff it out at any moment. Later, when the council was done, Lyra spoke to Aaron in private. Her voice was calm, but her eyes held sorrow. You defend me even when your people doubt. But tell me truly, Aaron. Do you trust me? Aaron looked at her for a long moment. I trust what I see. And what I see is a princess who has not turned her back on peace, even when it costs her pride. That is enough for me. Her heart stirred at his words, though she did not show it. Days passed, and the threat grew stronger. The blood oath struck again, this time closer to the stronghold. Refugees came with tales of winged raiders and burning homes. The fear spread like fire in dry grass. Soldiers demanded harsher measures. Villagers whispered of driving the princess away. One evening, as the sun sank low, Lyra sat alone in the courtyard. A shadow moved across the wall, and she turned quickly. A figure stepped from the darkness, cloaked in black, eyes glowing faint red. It was a vampire messenger, bold enough to come into human lands. You should not be here, Lyra whispered. The figure bowed slightly. I come with a message, princess. The blood oath grows stronger. They will not stop until the humans are broken and you are returned to your rightful place. I will not return, she answered sharply. Peace is my path now. The messenger's voice grew cold. Then you are lost to us. But know this, princess, when the blood oath strikes, they will not spare you. To them, you are no better than a traitor. Before the guards could react, the figure leapt into the night, wings carrying him away. When Aaron heard what had happened, he was not surprised. They mean to break both our worlds, he said. If they can make humans fear you, they will succeed. If they can make vampires hate you, they will succeed. That is their game. Lyra lowered her gaze. And in that game, I am the piece most easily broken. Aaron placed a hand on the hilt of his sword. Not while I live. Soon after, an attack came closer than ever. The Blood Oath raiders struck at the river town that supplied food to the stronghold. Fires lit the night, and cries of battle carried on the wind. Aaron gathered his soldiers, and Lyra followed despite warnings. She had lived long in halls of command, but now she wished to see what humans faced each day. The battle was chaos. Arrows filled the sky, torches burned on rooftops, and the clash of steel echoed through the streets. Aaron fought at the front, his sword cutting through the night, his shield holding against claw and fang. His voice carried strength, rallying his soldiers. Lyra moved among the wounded, using the healing knowledge of her kind. Her hands glowed faintly as she closed wounds, slowed bleeding, and gave hope to those fading. Many stared at her in shock, for they had never seen a vampire heal rather than harm. Slowly, trust began to flicker in their eyes. When the raiders were driven back, the town stood wounded but not broken. The people saw that Aaron had fought for them as always, but they also saw that the princess had saved their lives. Whispers began to change. Some now called her ally instead of enemy. Yet victory came with a cost. Among the captured raiders was one who spoke before dying. He claimed that the Blood Oath had greater plans. They sought an ancient weapon hidden in the ruins of the old vampire kingdoms. If they gained it, both humans and loyal vampires would fall under their power. Aaron and Lyra stood together as the news spread. The threat was greater than anyone had feared. Lyra spoke firmly. If this is true, then both our peoples are in danger. My father must know. The Council of Humans must know. We cannot fight this enemy apart. Aaron nodded. Then we will fight together. In that moment, something shifted between them. No longer were they warrior and captive, nor symbol and stranger. They were allies standing against the same shadow. The bond was still fragile, but it was real. As the night grew quiet again, Lyra stood beside Aaron, watching the stars above the battlefield. She thought of the messenger's words, of betrayal from her own kind, and of the suspicion in human eyes. But she also thought of the wounded she had healed, of the children who had thanked her with trembling voices, and of Aaron's steady presence at her side. The world was changing, and with it, so was she. The shadows of betrayal had risen, but so too had the first light of trust. The stronghold was quiet after the battle at the river town, but the silence was heavy with tension. The news that the Blood Oath sought an ancient weapon spread quickly among both humans and loyal vampires. No one knew exactly what this weapon was, but the old stories spoke of something powerful, hidden in ruins from an age when vampires had ruled over vast lands. Some said it was a relic of forgotten magic, others whispered it was a device built by lost science. Whatever the truth, if it fell into the hands of the Blood Oath, both races would be in danger. Aaron stood in the council hall with his armor still scarred from battle. Leaders of villages sat across the table, their faces lined with worry. We cannot wait, Aaron said firmly. The Blood Oath moves fast, and if they reach the ruins first, we will not be able to stop them. We must strike before they do. Some leaders shook their heads. It is too dangerous. We barely survived the last raid. If we leave our stronghold undefended, they may strike here. Aaron's voice grew stronger. If they gain this weapon, no wall will protect us. We will fall no matter how high our defenses stand. Silence filled the room. The truth was hard to deny. Finally, one old leader spoke. Then who will lead this mission? All eyes turned to Aaron. He did not hesitate. I will. Lyra, who stood at his side, stepped forward. Her voice was calm but clear. And I will go with him. This weapon belongs to vampire history. I know the old tales, and I can guide us through the ruins. A murmur spread through the hall. Some objected at once. She cannot be trusted. This is her people's weapon. But Aaron cut through the noise. She has already chosen peace. She fought with us, healed our wounded, and risked her life when the Blood Oath attacked. If she wishes to stand beside me, then I will accept her. Reluctant but unable to argue, the council gave their approval. The mission was set. The journey began at dawn. Aaron led a small band of trusted soldiers. Lyra walked among them, cloaked in dark silver to shield her from the sun, though she bore it with grace. The land stretched wide, hills rolling into forests, rivers winding through valleys. 4 days they marched, their path taking them far from the safety of the stronghold. At night, when the soldiers rested by the fire, Aaron and Lyra often spoke quietly. She told him stories of the old vampire kingdoms, of towers that reached the clouds and libraries filled with forgotten wisdom. He listened with interest, though he always asked one question: why such power had faded. Because pride blinded us, Lyra admitted softly. We thought ourselves eternal. We fed on fear instead of building trust. In the end, we destroyed more than we created. Aaron looked into the fire. Humans make mistakes too. But we learn, or we fall. Their words were simple, yet in them grew a deeper understanding. On the fourth night, they reached the edge of the ruins. Before them lay a desolate land. Broken towers leaned against the sky, their stones blackened with age. The ground was cracked, as if the earth itself remembered battles long forgotten. In the distance, faint lights flickered, signs that the blood oath was already there. Aaron's soldiers tightened their grips on weapons. They have beaten us to it, one muttered. Aaron raised his hand. Then we take it from them. Moving under the cover of night, they crept closer. Shadows moved among the ruins, vampire raiders guarding the site. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the broken walls, marks of ancient power. In the center stood a great stone door, half buried in the earth. Before it, the blood oath worked with tools and claws, trying to break it open. Lyra's eyes narrowed. That door leads to the vault of sorrow. My people say it was sealed in blood so it could never be opened lightly. If they break through, the weapon will be theirs. Aaron looked at her. Then we must stop them before that happens. The battle began swiftly. Arrows whistled through the air, striking down guards. Aaron charged forward with shield raised, his sword flashing in the firelight. His soldiers followed, striking with fierce cries. The blood oath, caught by surprise, turned in anger, their wings spreading wide. The ruins echoed with the clash of steel and the hiss of claws. Lyra fought beside the humans, her movements swift and graceful. She used both blade and the strange strength of her kind, moving faster than human eyes could follow. Though some soldiers glanced at her warily, they could not deny the aid she gave. Aaron faced the leader of the raiders, a tall vampire with cruel eyes. You should have stayed in the dark, the enemy sneered. Now you will die here, and the weapon will be ours. Aaron did not waste words. He raised his sword and struck. Their duel was fierce, steel against claw, strength against speed. Dust rose around them as their blows shook the ground. Aaron's shield splintered, but he fought on with raw will. At last, with a final strike, he drove his blade through the raider's chest, sending him falling into the dust. The battle turned. Without their leader, the blood oath began to falter. But before they could be defeated, a rumble shook the earth. The great stone door began to glow, its markings burning with red light. Cracks spread across its surface, and with a thunderous roar, it opened. From within came a wave of energy, cold and sharp, like a wind that cut to the bone. The soldiers staggered, and even the vampires drew back in fear. Inside the vault, a single object rested upon a pedestal. It was a blade, long and dark, its edge gleaming with unnatural light. Lyra gasped. The blood fang. A weapon forged in the age of shadows. It was said to drink the strength of any life it touched. That is why it was sealed away. One of the surviving raiders screamed and rushed forward, hands outstretched for the weapon. But before he could reach it, Aaron hurled his broken shield. The blow struck the raider aside, sending him crashing into the wall. Lyra turned to Aaron quickly. The blood fang cannot remain here. If the blood oath cannot take it, they will return again and again until they do. Aaron's jaw tightened. Then we destroy it. But Lyra shook her head. It cannot be destroyed by simple means. Its power is bound in ancient blood. only a vow stronger than fear can hold it sealed. The soldiers looked uncertain, but Aaron stepped forward. Then we make that vow. Together, Aaron and Lyra approached the pedestal. The weapon pulsed as if alive, whispering in the silence. Lyra placed her hand on the stone, her eyes glowing faintly. Aaron placed his hand beside hers. Their voices rose together, swearing a blood oath. I swear by my life, Aaron said, that this weapon will never be used to enslave or destroy. And I swear by my blood, Lyra answered, that it will remain sealed, bound by peace, not pride. Light blazed from the pedestal. The weapon trembled, then sank slowly into the stone, vanishing as if swallowed by the earth. The vault shook, and the great door closed once more, the glowing marks fading into silence. The soldiers stared in awe. The danger was ended, at least for now. The blood oath had been defeated, and their prize lost to them forever. As dawn broke, the company began the journey back to the stronghold. Their steps were weary, but their spirits carried strength. Aaron walked beside Lyra, and for the first time, there was no doubt between them. They had sworn a vow not as enemies or strangers, but as partners. In the eyes of the soldiers, their bond was clear. Whispers spread that the warrior and the princess had sealed more than a weapon, they had sealed their fates together. The journey back to the stronghold was quiet, but the air was heavy with reflection. The battle in the ruins had tested every soldier, and the danger of the blood oath had been ended, at least for now. The humans walked with tired steps, the young and old alike carrying the memory of what they had seen. The vampires in their company, including Lyra, carried an unspoken weight of pride and relief. The ancient weapon had been sealed, but the risk they had faced would not be forgotten. Aaron rode at the front, his sword sheathed, his gaze distant. The warrior who had once been driven by rage now carried a calm certainty. Beside him, Lyra walked quietly, her robes catching the wind of the open plains. She had grown accustomed to the humans' ways, and the rough paths that once felt strange now seemed familiar. You were brave, Aaron said softly, breaking the silence. Lyra looked up, her eyes reflecting the morning sunday, and you were stronger. You never wavered, not even when the weapon rose. Aaron smiled faintly. I only do what must be done. Strength is nothing without purpose. Her eyes lingered on him. And purpose is nothing without trust. He met her gaze, and in that moment, the bond between them deepened. Trust had grown slowly, born of battle and shared danger, of words spoken in quiet moments and decisions made side by side. When they reached the stronghold, the sight of the walls rising above the fields brought a sense of relief. The people gathered at the gates, faces filled with curiosity, hope, and awe. Many had heard the story of the Blood Fang, and the sight of their warriors returning with the princess alive and unhurt brought cheers and murmurs of admiration. Aaron dismounted and walked among the soldiers, praising their courage and commending their loyalty. Lyra followed, and wherever she went, people stepped back in surprise, but the fear that had once shadowed her presence was slowly replaced by respect. She healed the wounded as she had done before, calming frightened villagers and soldiers alike. The council gathered that evening to hear the full report of the mission. Leaders of towns and villages sat in the hall, eyes wide as Lyra described the vault, the blood fang, and the oath she and Aaron had sworn. Many were astonished that a vampire had not only aided them but had acted decisively to protect both humans and vampires from future danger. One elder rose, his voice heavy with emotion. Princess Lyra, you have shown courage and honor. You have risked life and blood to protect both worlds. For this, you have my gratitude. Lyra bowed her head. I did what I believed was right. I hope it is only the beginning of peace between our peoples. Aaron added firmly, it is only the beginning if we continue to stand together, not divided by fear, pride, or old grudges. The room was silent, but in that silence, a new understanding took root. That night, under the light of a calm moon, Aaron and Lyra stood on the battlements of the stronghold. The wind carried the scent of fields, forests, and the river below. The stars shone above them, uncountable and steady, as if witnessing the quiet moment of triumph. Lyra spoke first. Do you think our people will ever truly accept peace? Aaron shrugged. It will take time. Some may resist. Some may doubt. But we have shown them that trust is possible. That action can be stronger than fear. She turned to him, her gaze searching. And what of us? You and I. Aaron's eyes softened. We have fought together. We have chosen together. The path ahead is not easy, but it is ours to walk. For a long moment, they stood quietly, watching the land that had once been torn by war. Then Lyra took a step closer. I wish to choose my life, not as a princess given as payment, but as a person who wants to live beside you. Aaron reached for her hand, holding it firmly yet gently. Then you shall. Not as payment. Not as a gift. But as my partner, my equal, my wife if you wish. Lyra smiled, a soft and steady smile that carried relief, hope, and joy all at once. Then I will. The union was not announced in haste. There were no ceremonies of grandeur at first, only the quiet agreement of two souls who had faced darkness together and chosen light. But soon, the people learned. Soldiers spoke of the courage of both the warrior and the princess. Villagers whispered of their bond and of how peace had been saved through their courage. The vampire clans received the news with a mixture of surprise and cautious approval. Some saw it as a sign of weakness, but many recognized it as a new symbol, that unity could exist between humans and vampires without sacrifice of pride or life. In the days that followed, Aaron and Lyra worked to strengthen bonds between humans and loyal vampires. They traveled to villages, offering protection, advice, and help in rebuilding what had been lost. Children learned to play together under the cautious watch of parents who had once feared the other race. Markets filled with goods from both humans and vampires. Stories of the warrior and the princess spread, not as tales of fear, but as tales of courage and trust. One evening, as they returned to the stronghold after a long day, Lyra paused near the river. The sun had set, and the reflection of the stars danced upon the water. I never thought I would see this, she said softly. A future where both our peoples live without fear. Aaron stood beside her. It is only possible because we dared to face the darkness together. She turned to him, her voice earnest. And you never doubted me. Even when others did. Aaron shook his head. I saw your actions, not the whispers. That is what mattered. Lyra smiled again, the kind of smile that spoke of trust earned and love growing. In that moment, the past seemed distant, a shadow that no longer held sway over their lives. Time passed. The stronghold became a place of learning and growth. Children were taught not only how to fight, but also how to understand others, how to respect differences, and how to build a future together. Farmers shared their harvests, soldiers shared their skills, and vampires shared knowledge long forgotten by humans. Aaron and Lyra were at the center of it all, not as rulers who demanded obedience, but as leaders who inspired respect. They trained together, fought when needed, and governed with wisdom and fairness. Their bond became a symbol, showing that courage, trust, and love could change the course of history. One morning, as the first light of sun touched the high walls of the stronghold, Lyra and Aaron stood side by side. Birds sang in the distance, the river sparkled, and the fields beyond were green and thriving. They had faced war, betrayal, and the threats of darkness, and they had survived. But more than survival, they had built a life that honored both their peoples. Aaron looked at Lyra, his voice quiet but full of certainty. We have faced the night, the shadows of betrayal, and the weight of history. Now, we walk forward, not as warrior and captive, but as partners. Lyra took his hand in hers, her grip steady and warm. Yes. Together. In the stronghold, humans and vampires alike looked to them as the living proof that peace was not a dream, but a choice. A choice that could be made by courage, by honor, and by love. And in that moment, the warrior's bride smiled, not as a princess given as payment, but as a woman who had chosen her own life, and a warrior who had chosen hers. Together, they stepped into the future, ready for whatever challenges might come, knowing that whatever darkness waited, they would face it side by side. The stars above shone steady in the sky, witnesses to a union born of courage and sealed by trust. The story of the human warrior and the vampire princess would be remembered for generations, a tale of hope, honor, and the power of choice.